Hello and welcome everybody, and thanks for joining me again. My name is Wilkie, and as you can see on my screen right now, I have the final countdown open for Blade&Soul, the global version. The head start is about 3 hours 21 minutes, and the official launch is going to be in 3 days and 14 hours. So it's not long before the people with the founder packs and a head start can play, and not much longer before everybody else is also able to play. So you may ask yourself, why am I showing you this and what's the purpose of this video? And basically I want to make a short guide, a crash course if you will, about some of the game's mechanics and things you may want to know. And I'll probably divide this video into like 2 parts. The first one is, like I said, going to cover the game itself and maybe some mechanics you didn't know. Maybe you know, but you weren't sure about this. And the second part is, maybe you've guessed it by now, I'm going to talk about 2 sites I think which are really useful in your journey about the game and things you may want to learn about it, and in case you're looking, for example, for a community or any other information, I'll quickly cover those. So basically I'm gonna start off talking about Blade&Soul a bit. I guess by now, if you're watching this video, you probably have seen any other video on my channel or any of the other YouTubers slash streamers. So I should guess you are familiar with Blade&Soul by now. But basically there are a few things I guess people do not know, or a lot of people did know in closed beta. And to kind of give you brief information and brief explanation of things, I'm gonna talk about PvE first. Basically, Blade&Soul is a context-based PvE system, an action-based MMORPG, so it relies quite a bit on reflexes, your awareness and perceptions, how well you can react, how well you can read your opponents, your enemies' moves, and how good you can actually perform in a party, because there's a unique system. It's not that unique, I guess, but there's a system in the game that allows you to even crowd control certain bosses if you work together with a party. Like against certain regular bosses, I like to call them, it works relatively easy, and you get like hit markers and you get pop-ups which basically show you which skill you have to use. But there are also bosses where this does not apply, and in this case you should actually be familiar with your own moveset, your team partner movesets, and obviously the boss moveset. That is vitally important if you want to succeed in this game. So if you're playing alone and solo for most of the part, this is not really going to interest you, but for those of you who play in a party, actually it's not just simply spam everything away, but pay attention, maybe communicate with your party, and you'll see that especially boss fights with bosses that are maybe annoying for you or maybe dangerous will be a lot easier if you work together and kind of like communicate which order of skills you want to use. And because there's also the other part that in case you trigger certain states of the boss, some other teammate of yours may actually screw up. I'm gonna give you an example here. For example, if you're fighting a boss which gets knocked down or stunned, and some people just butt mash and end up knocking him up into the air, that actually drops your DPS a significant amount and also renders most of your team partners unable to attack the enemy. So in this case, maybe it would have been smarter to not use your knockup, but like I said, this requires really perception and I guess communication or simply patience of your side, and not spamming your buttons. But that's like really only one major aspect about the PvE system, especially the PvE party system. What else is there to talk about PvE? It's like a mixture between an open world MMO and like a dungeon-based game. Like you have open world, like most of the game is actually open world, that also includes open world PvP. But there are also like instance-based maps or dungeons basically where you enter through a portal and you're entering your own portal and you have your own dungeon, which is either only for yourself if you're running solo, or if you're running with a party, you're actually only entering with your party. So that's a cool feature, I think, that mixes up and kind of breaks up of the monotony of like either a full instance-based game or a completely open-world game, which I think it does really well, and it kind of helps to, you know, it doesn't get the feeling of being too grindy. Obviously, it gets grindy at some point, but not really that much. But I think these little changes are really, really cool and make this PvE life much more enjoyable. There are daily quests. There's a daily dash, which is basically like a daily... It's not really a quest, you simply get to roll a dice. Or like so you spin a wheel, basically. And depending on what your result is, you're moving along a like playboard of a game that actually rewards you with items. So you get free items for playing every day. You don't really have to play, all you have to do is log in and spin the wheel. But there's also daily quests, which obviously reset, give you a good decent amount of cash and some items which can be useful. There's story quests. The story is, I guess, not that uninteresting. I'm not really a story and a lore guy, but the Blade&Soul story seems to be captivating a lot of people, so that also may be a selling point for you. And yeah, is there really anything else you should be knowing about PvE? I guess the most important thing for PvE is don't be afraid to practice and figure out and try out new skill builds, because one of the biggest and coolest features about the game is that you can reskill at any given time for free. Yes, you heard it, you can reskill for free. You get skill points which you can allocate wherever you want, and you can just remove them and put them somewhere else as long as you're not in combat. So basically you can fight a mob and be like, oh, maybe that skill is not really what I thought it is, or it's not really good. So you simply wait until you're out of combat, which usually only takes a few seconds, and you can simply change and reallocate your points, which is really cool. It pretty much removes all of the stress of other games where you have to pay attention to not screw up your skill build, to not be sure whether or not this skill is actually good. So you can try, you can meddle around. It's really up to you which way you play your class, which is, I think, a really great feature, because it gives you a lot of freedom and it really makes it a lot more fun to practice out build, to try out things, because you can always do it. There's no penalty for doing it. You can do it as many times as you want. There's no limitation at all, which is probably the coolest feature about combat itself. Not only limited to PvE, it also works in PvP, obviously, but I think that's one of the most important things you guys should be knowing. I think that's pretty much all of the important things about PvE. Let's hop onto some PvP topics, and I'm gonna start off with the same thing here. Never be afraid to try out skill builds. Don't be afraid to try out new things. Change your skill builds, even between rounds. You don't have to use the same skill build for the same enemy. Like, you're fighting usually 2 rounds in a game, or at least 2 matches. So maybe after the first round you can change your skill build and try out something else. So be free, really. Don't be that narrow-minded and keep your skill build all the time. I mean, it's okay if you found a skill build that works for you in every occasion. That's totally fine. But don't neglect the thing that you can reskill at every given point, which really gives you a lot of variety. And even though you may fight the same class in 2 different games, if it's a different player, it actually may be a whole different experience. So always remember that, and keep your eyes open on that. The second, and probably also one of the most important things about PvP, is, at least the arena, your stats are generated. And what I mean by that is your stats are completely free and not linked to your character itself. Like, they are linked to your class, but no bow pays or soul shields, none of your jewelries or accessories, no weapon has any impact whatsoever on your stats in the arena. So if you go into the arena, all your stats are generated by the game by a certain formula, which I don't actually know, but you're getting a set amount of stats which are completely independent of your gear. And so that means there's absolutely no gear rush in the arena. Once you go into the arena, you are getting your set amount of stats and that's it. There's no way to change these stats, so there is completely no way of pay to winning, I guess, in the arena, and any other gear and item advantage you can gain. The only thing you actually need is to equip a weapon in PvP, and that brings me to the third and probably last point about PvP. You don't need a fixed weapon, and it doesn't matter which weapon. And that confuses a lot of people, because especially in the closed beta, I've seen a lot of people waste so much money on repairs because they literally repaired their weapon every 2 or 3 matches. I mean, given the fact the weapon breaks relatively fast in PvP, here's the deal. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter. First off, you can use whichever weapon you want, because as I said initially, your items do not matter in the arena. So it doesn't matter if you're wearing your level 1 weapon or if you're wearing a fully evolved level 45 weapon. Your damage output is going to be exactly the same, and your gems do not matter. So why do you have to equip a weapon at all? Simply to deal damage. That's the way the game works. So you have to equip a weapon at least to be able to deal damage. But other than that, it does not matter what type of weapon you equip, and it doesn't matter if the weapon is fixed, partially broken, or even completely broken. It does not matter. So basically what you want to do is get a weapon you either like the appearance of or simply use the starter weapon and use it for PvP. That way you can avoid a lot of repair costs. You do not have to waste hammers. You do not have to waste cash on NPCs to repair your gear. This is really important because there's a lot of I'm pretty sure a lot of people, even after launch, are going to repair their items in the arena. That's unfortunate, but this is absolutely not necessary. This is 100% waste of cash and resources. Do not repair your gear for PvP. Simply don't do it. This is really one of the most crucial things, I guess, you need to know, because if you get upset because you waste cash, and especially if you learn it after a while, a few days or even weeks, that you don't even have to use any repairs on your weapon for PvP in the arena, I guess it can frustrate a lot of people, so keep that in mind. Do not repair your weapon for PvP, and the easiest way is to simply get a designated weapon you simply switch out when you go into the arena. I think that's all of my advice I can give you about PvE and PvP. I'm gonna hop to the second part, which basically is, as you can see, one of these sites I'm going to talk about is bnstree.com. I'll put the URLs into the description so you can click on them. You don't have to type those in. Basically, this site is, as we guessed it, a skill tree simulator. Obviously, we have Warlock and Soul Fighter, which are not available in our version yet. And also, take this with a grain of salt. Some of the skill builds may actually differ from the version we have, so it may not actually be exactly the same, but you can get a very clear and good idea of what skills the classes have. Maybe if you want to learn names, maybe if you want to learn about some effects of the class in case you're fighting against the class and you know you get also always countered or hit by a certain skill and you don't know what it is and don't know how to prevent that. This site actually may give you the information you need. You have these bars at the left side, and you also have an item evolver and soul shield mixer, which helps you create an open PvP and also PvE guide with your items. What's also cool about this site is basically if you scroll down to the bottom, you see these two tabs, I guess, popular builds and new builds, which basically are skill builds which other people have uploaded, which is a pretty cool feature. I guess a lot of you guys know who this is, Jaesong. He was actually very active streaming for the closed beta tests, so I guess a lot of you guys know who that is. And even if you don't know, you can simply click on these builds and see and figure out what ways other people play the class or what pros play the class. And it's a good way to kind of learn things, learn maybe new things, maybe you play the class in a different way. It's a really cool feature. However, don't take these 100% because obviously even if a pro used this build, it does not matter, or it does not mean that this is the ultimate build. It simply means that he was, or she, and depending on the player, was successful using this build, but that not necessarily means that you are going to achieve the same goal with this build. So take this as kind of like an inspiration and see if this build suits your playstyle. If it doesn't, try meddling around, try looking for another build, or simply figure out your own build. Like I said in the PvE part, you can reskill at every given point, so there's absolutely no reason not to play around with your build. That's pretty much all about BNS tree. It also shows the countdown here, which is also the reason why I have it open. And the second site I'm gonna talk about is the Blade&Soul dojo, which is, it's not exactly a Blade&Soul wiki, but it pretty much acts like a fan page, or it is a fan page, which kind of like compresses a lot of information for you in a lot better manners than the official forums. I have to admit that the official forums are, at least in my opinion, really terrible. Other than that, they are currently down. I don't like the appearance of it. It kind of feels unresponsive and it feels like a lot of clutter. I really don't like it the way it looks and performs, but that's just really me. That's a personal thing. So basically you also see the countdown here. And you also have these polls, so this is a really good way to get to know the community, get a lot of information from other people outside of the game, also from different servers. So you also have the forums, you have the wiki here, you have a lot of information, like recent things here. This is a really good site for you to gather additional information about the game, about the community. I'm pretty sure there are also going to be guides in the forums regarding PvE, PvP, and maybe even crafting and resources. So if you want to gather more intel about the game, Blade&Soul Dojo is probably going to be one of your main addresses for this purpose. Because like I said, it's really a good site. It's very well compressed. I like the design. It pretty much shows you most of the new things right away in a few scrolls, which is pretty good. This is the way like a web page or a fan page should work. It also shows you this guide that you can download the game right now. So it's a really cool thing. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about these two sites. Those information I gave you should hopefully, I guess, prove helpful for some of you at least. Maybe some of you guys already knew all of this information. That might be in that case. I'm sorry to have wasted a few minutes of your time, which is unfortunate, but I'm pretty sure not everybody knew everything I said in this video, and maybe not everybody knew these websites. So this may be a good thing to polish up your information before you dive into the Blade&Soul universe. Alright, that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about. A small additional info at the end. I am going to play on the EU server Windrest, in case some of you guys are wondering. It seems that Windrest is probably going to be the most populated EU server we're going to have. So your chances of meeting your YouTubers, streamers, or your friends, or maybe other people are probably going to be the best on Windrest. However, that does not mean that the other servers are going to be boring or something. That simply gives you my note that I'm playing on this server, in case you're wondering. Alright, that's pretty much all. We have about 3 hours and 2 minutes left before the game goes into a head start. I hope you guys will enjoy the future content I will be putting up. I'm certainly going to be making videos about Blade&Soul. The question is when. I'll probably simply focus on leveling up on the head start. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be PvPing on the weekend. Maybe I will. If I will PvP, I'll probably record a few matches to see how things are rolling. Anyways, thank you guys for sticking around, and hopefully I'll see you guys in one of the following videos, and maybe even in-game, I don't know. Feel free to chat me up in case you see me or in case you want to know something. I'm here to answer your questions. Alright, anyways, looking forward to play the game probably just as much as you guys do, and yeah, hopefully we're going to have a good time.